I killed a man to save someone who didn't deserve it, and it's eating me alive. My name's Jack Ramsey, 42, used to be a bodyguard for the kind of people who own private jets and secrets darker than mine. I'm from Chicago, ex-Marine, built my life on keeping others safe. But looking back, I wonder if I was just a hired gun, blind to the truth. I worked for Victor Crane, a businessman with a smile that could sell you your own soul. He was my client for 3 years, the kind of guy you'd take a bullet for, and I almost did. Until I started seeing cracks, his too perfect calm, the way his enemies vanished. I'm not proud of what I did, but I'm not sorry either. I'm stuck in this gray space, hating myself for pulling that trigger and wondering if Victor played me from the start. It started at a gala, one of those nights where champagne flows and everyone's hiding a knife. Victor was working the room, all charm, while I scanned for threats. My job was simple: keep him alive. I was good at it, 6 feet, 200 pounds, trained to spot trouble before it moved. That night, he pulled me aside, said, "Jack, you're my rock." Made me feel like I mattered. I ate it up, the praise, the trust. I'd been a Marine, seen combat, but this felt different, personal. Victor had a way of making you feel chosen. But something was off. He'd get calls at 2 a.m., step away, come back like nothing happened. Once I overheard him whisper, "Make it clean." I brushed it off. Clients have secrets, right? My job wasn't to judge, it was to protect. Still, it nagged me, like a splinter you can't dig out. Then came the night I killed for him. A guy lunged at Victor in a parking garage, knife flashing. I didn't think. I drew, fired, watched him drop. Victor thanked me, said I saved his life. But his eyes, they were too calm, like he knew it was coming. Now, I can't shake the thought that I was a pawn. Did Victor set it up? Was that guy a threat or just a loose end? I keep replaying it, wondering if I'm the monster now. I quit the agency after that, but the guilt's still here, heavy as ever. I'm scared I lost the part of me that knew right from wrong. I check my locks twice at night, not because I'm afraid of someone breaking in, but because I'm afraid of who I've become. Looking back, I thought I had it all figured out. The job was my life, clean, controlled, purposeful. I was 39 when I started with Victor Crane, fresh off a decade in private security after the Marines. The agency, Titan Security, paired me with him because I was their best, calm under pressure, eyes like a hawk. Victor was a big deal, a businessman who owned half the city's skyline, or so it seemed. He had this aura, sharp suits, sharper words. I'd stand by his side at board meetings, charity balls, late-night dinners with shady types who smiled too much. My job was to blend in, a shadow in a suit, ready to move if things went south. The routine was my anchor. Every morning I'd check my gear, Glock 19, earpiece, knife strapped to my ankle. I'd meet Victor at his penthouse, go over his schedule, scan for risks. He'd joke, "Jack, you worry too much?" But I saw how he leaned on me. I liked that. It felt like trust. Lila Torres, my partner on the team, was the same, sharp, no nonsense, always checking exits. We banter about dumb clients, but with Victor, it was different. He made you feel like family. Once, he gave me a bonus, said, "For keeping me safe." I bought my mom a new fridge with it. But there were hints of something off, even then. Victor's meetings weren't always clean, guys in cheap suits slipping him envelopes, hush talks in parking lots. I told myself it was just business, not my place to question. Lila noticed too, she'd raise an eyebrow but say nothing. We were trained to stay quiet, to focus on the job. I'd drive Victor through Chicago's glittering nights, watching his reflection in the rearview, wondering what he wasn't saying. He'd catch my eye, flash that grin, and I'd let it go. I was good at my job, maybe too good. I'd spot a guy lingering too long at a bar, clock his hands, his posture, and shut it down before it started. Victor praised me, said I was born for this. I believed him. The money was nice, sure, but it was the purpose that kept me hooked. Protecting him felt like protecting something bigger, order maybe. I ignored the late-night calls, the way he dismissed me when certain associates showed up. I told myself I was in control, that I knew the game. Looking back, I was naive. Those cracks I ignored? They were warnings. Victor wasn't just a client, he was a chess player, and I was a piece on his board. I didn't see it then, too caught up in the rhythm of the job. I'd check my gun, adjust my tie, and tell myself I had this. But deep down, something gnawed at me, a feeling I was missing something big. I pushed it aside, kept moving. That's what you do when you think you're untouchable. You keep moving, until the world cracks open and shows you just how wrong you were. Here's what happened the night I killed a man. It's burned into me, every detail sharp as broken glass. It was late, maybe 11 p.m., in a Chicago parking garage, concrete walls echoing our steps. Victor had just finished a dinner with some investors, all smiles and handshakes. I was on edge. Something about the night felt wrong, like the air was too heavy. Lila was with me, scanning the shadows while Victor walked ahead, his phone glowing in his hand. I kept my hand near my Glock, my heart steady but alert. Then it happened fast. A figure bolted from behind a pillar, black hoodie, knife gleaming under the fluorescent lights. He went straight for Victor, no hesitation. I shouted, "Down!" But Victor froze, staring like he was waiting for it. My training kicked in, years as a Marine, years in security. I drew, aimed, fired. 2 shots, chest and shoulder. The guy hit the ground, blood pooling on the concrete. Lila rushed to Victor, pulling him back, while I checked the body. No ID, just a cheap knife and a burner phone. Dead in seconds? Victor was shaken, or so it seemed. He grabbed my arm, said, "Jack, you saved me. Thank God for you." But his voice was too steady, his grip too firm. I brushed it off, adrenaline pumping, telling myself it was shock. Lila called it into the agency, and Mark, our boss, showed up with a cleanup crew. He patted my back, said, "Clean work, Ramsey." But I saw the way he glanced at Victor, like they shared a secret I wasn't in on. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing the guy's face, young, maybe 25, eyes wide as he fell. I'd killed before, in combat, but this was different. It felt too easy, too staged. Why didn't Victor duck? Why was the attacker so sloppy, like he wasn't expecting me to shoot? I told myself I did my job, protected my client. But the doubt crept in, cold and sharp. What if I'd missed something? The next day, Mark called me in. Said the police ruled it self-defense, no charges. "Forget it, Jack," he said. "You're a hero." But I wasn't. I felt like a tool, used and discarded. Lila pulled me aside later, her voice low. "Something's off, Jack." Victor didn't even flinch. I nodded, but I didn't want to hear it. I wanted to believe I'd done right. Looking back, that was the first crack in my world. I'd always trusted my instincts, but now they were screaming I'd been played. I kept working, kept protecting Victor, but every step felt heavier. I'd look at him, laughing with clients, and wonder what he was hiding. I wasn't ready to face it, not yet. But that night in the garage, the blood on the concrete, it changed me. I wasn't just a bodyguard anymore. I was a man who'd killed, and I wasn't sure why. I kept telling myself I did the right thing. That guy in the garage was a threat, knife in hand, going for Victor. I had no choice. My job was to protect, and I did. But the more I replayed it, the more it felt wrong, like a puzzle with missing pieces. Victor's calm eyes, the way he thanked me too smoothly, like he'd rehearsed it. I tried to shake it off, to bury the doubt, but it was like trying to hold water in my hands. It kept slipping through. The agency didn't help. Mark called me in a week later, his office cluttered with files and coffee cups. "You're overthinking it, Jack," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Guy was a junkie, probably high, looking for a quick score. You saved Crane's life." End of story. But it wasn't. The police report was too clean, no priors, no motive, just a ghost with a knife. Mark's dismissal felt like a pat on the head, like I was a kid asking too many questions. I wanted to push back, ask why Victor didn't flinch, but Mark's eyes said don't. So I nodded, said, "Yeah, okay," and left. Lila wasn't much better. We grabbed coffee after, and I laid it out, Victor's weird vibe, the attacker's sloppy moves. She stirred her latte, avoiding my eyes. "Jack, you did your job. Let it go. You want to keep working, right?" Her voice had an edge, like she was scared of something bigger. I got it, she had bills, a kid at home. Rocking the boat wasn't her style. But her words stung, like she thought I was losing it. Maybe I was. I kept working Victor's detail, but every job felt heavier. I'd scan rooms, check exits, but half my brain was on that night. I'd catch Victor watching me sometimes, his smile too sharp, like he knew I was unraveling. Once he clapped my shoulder, said, "You're my guy, Jack. don't overthink. It felt like a warning, not reassurance. I'd lie awake at night, the guy's face flashing in my head, those wide eyes, the blood. Was he really just a junkie? Or was he something else, someone Victor needed gone? The shame was the worst part. I'd always prided myself on being sharp, seeing through the bullshit. But now I felt like a fool, like I'd missed the real threat. Survivor's guilt, maybe, but it was more than that. I was starting to think I'd been played, that I'd killed for a lie. I couldn't talk to anyone. Lila was too cautious, Mark was too dismissive. I was alone with it, carrying this weight, pretending I was fine. I'd check my gun, adjust my tie, and go through the motions, but inside I was drowning. I kept telling myself to let it go, that I was being paranoid. But deep down, I knew something was rotten, and I was too scared to face it. The doubts kept piling up, like bricks stacking higher until I couldn't see over them. I was still on Victor's detail, but every day felt like walking through quicksand. I'd watch him in meetings, all charm and control, shaking hands with men whose eyes screamed trouble. I started noticing things I'd brushed off before. The way Victor would step away for calls, his voice low, clipped, like he was giving orders. Once, I caught him glancing at me after one of those calls, his smile too tight, like he was checking if I'd heard. I hadn't, but it made my skin crawl. Lila was picking up on it too. One night, after a long shift, we were grabbing beers at a dive bar. She leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. "Jack, you notice how Victor's always got new associates showing up? Guys who don't fit his usual crowd." I nodded. I'd seen them, rough types, not the polished suits he usually ran with. One had a tattoo on his neck, a snake coiled around a dagger. Not exactly boardroom material. Lila's eyes darted around, like she was scared someone was listening. "I heard one of them mention a cleanup last week," she said. Same word Victor used that night. That hit me hard. Cleanup. The word echoed from the night I killed that guy. I tried to play it cool, took a swig of my beer, but my hands were shaking. "You think it's connected?" I asked. Lila shrugged, but her jaw was tight. "I don't know, Jack. But I don't like it." She wouldn't say more, and I didn't push. We both knew the stakes, our jobs, our safety. Then there was Victor's demeanor after the attack. He was too calm, like he'd scripted the whole thing. A week later, I drove him to a warehouse district, a place he'd never gone before. He told me to wait in the car, but I saw him meet a guy in a black SUV, handing over a thick envelope. When he got back, he was whistling, like it was just another Tuesday. I asked, "Everything good, Mr. Crane?" He grinned, said, "Better than ever, Jack." But his eyes were cold, like he was daring me to ask more. I started keeping notes. Dates, times, faces I didn't recognize. It wasn't much, but it was something. Every time I saw Victor laugh with a client or pat my shoulder, I wondered what he was hiding. The agency wasn't helping. Mark kept me on a tight leash, checking in too often, like he didn't trust me anymore. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that every move I made was being weighed. I wasn't ready to act, not yet. Confronting Victor or Mark could end my career, or worse. But the red flags were screaming now, and ignoring them felt like betraying myself. I'd look at my Glock at night, wondering if I'd have to use it again, and for what. The truth was closing in, and I was terrified of what it would cost me to face it. I couldn't ignore it anymore. The truth hit me like a fist, and I had to face it. It was a humid Chicago night, 3 weeks after the garage shooting. Victor had a meeting at a high-rise downtown, some deal with a new investor. I was on duty, standing by the glass doors, scanning the lobby for anything off. Victor was inside a conference room, his voice muffled but sharp, like he was arguing. I caught fragments through my earpiece. Lila was closer, relaying bits. Then I heard it. "The loose end's gone. You got what you wanted." Victor's voice, cold as ice. My stomach dropped. Loose end. The guy I killed. I signaled Lila to meet me outside. She slipped out, her face pale. "You heard that, right?" I whispered. She nodded, eyes wide. "Jack, he's talking about the garage." "I know it." We didn't have proof, but it was enough to crack the dam. I waited until Victor left the room, all smiles for the investor, then followed him to his car. I had to know. I couldn't keep pretending. In the parking lot, I broke protocol. Instead of opening the car door, I blocked his path. "Mr. Crane," I said, my voice low, shaking. That night in the garage, was it a setup? His smile froze, just for a second, then he laughed too loud. Jack, you're stressed. That was a random thug. You saved me. But his eyes weren't laughing. They were sharp, like he was measuring me. I pushed harder. I heard you tonight. Loose end. Was that guy a threat, or did you need him gone? Victor's face changed, the charm slipping like a mask. Careful, Jack, he said, voice low. You're good at your job, but don't start playing detective. It's not your game. He stepped closer, his cologne sharp in my nose. You don't want to know what happens to people who ask too many questions. My heart was pounding, but I didn't back down. I already killed for you, I said. I deserve the truth. He stared at me, then got in the car without a word. I drove him home in silence, my hands tied on the wheel. Lila texted me later. You're crazy, Jack. Be careful. But I couldn't stop now. That conversation confirmed it. Victor had played me. The guy I killed wasn't a random attacker. He was a pawn, just like me. The weight of it crushed me, not just the guilt of killing, but the betrayal. I trusted Victor, believed in him, and he'd used me to clean up his mess. I went home, locked the door, and sat with my notes. Dates, faces, that warehouse meeting, now this. It wasn't enough for the cops, but it was enough for me. I had to do something, even if it cost me everything. I wasn't just a bodyguard anymore. I was a man who'd been lied to, and I couldn't live with that. The truth was out, and there was no going back. Confronting Victor was like pulling the pin on a grenade. I knew it'd blow up my life, but I didn't expect the shrapnel to hit so fast. The next morning, Mark called me into his office at Titan Security. His face was stone, no trace of the backpatting boss from before. You're off Crane's detail, he said, tossing a file on his desk. Insubordination. You're lucky I'm not firing you outright. I tried to argue, to explain what I'd heard, but he cut me off. You think you're a cop now, Ramsey? Stick to your job. His voice had an edge, like he was covering for someone. I left with my stomach in knots, knowing I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. By noon, I was out of a job entirely. Mark sent an email, cold and formal. My contract was terminated, effective immediately. No severance, no explanation, just a warning to avoid further disruption. I sat in my apartment, staring at the words, feeling the walls close in. Victor's threat from the night before echoed in my head. You don't want to know what happens to people who ask too many questions. I checked my locks twice. My Glock within reach. Lila was the next blow. I called her, hoping for an ally. She answered, voice clipped. Jack, you shouldn't have pushed him. You know how this works. I begged her to meet me, to talk about what we'd heard, but she hesitated. I've got a kid, Jack. I can't afford to lose this gig. She hung up, and that was it. My one friend in this mess gone. I didn't blame her, she was protecting her own, but it stung like hell. I was alone now, no job, no backup, just me and my notes. Victor didn't stop there. 2 days later, I got a text from an unknown number. Stay quiet, Ramsey. You're out of your depth. My heart raced. I traced the number, but it was a burner, untraceable. I started noticing things. A car idling too long outside my building, a guy in a hoodie watching me at the gas station. Maybe I was paranoid, but it felt real. I stopped sleeping, kept my curtains drawn. Every creak in my apartment made me jump. The agency blacklisted me. I called other firms, but word had spread, Jack Ramsey was trouble, a loose cannon. 10 years in security, and I was radioactive. My savings wouldn't last long, and the fear was constant. Had Victor put a target on me? Was Mark in on it? I kept replaying that night in the garage, the blood, Victor's calm eyes. I'd killed for him, and now I was the one running scared. I still had my notes, tucked in a locked drawer. They were all I had left, proof I wasn't crazy, proof Victor was dirty. But they weren't enough to take him down, not yet. I was out of the game, but the game wasn't done with me. I kept my gun close, knowing I'd made enemies I couldn't see. I was done sitting still. The fear, the paranoia, it was choking me, but it also lit a fire. If Victor thought he could scare me into silence, he didn't know me at all. I had nothing left, no job, no allies, just a locked drawer of notes, and a gut screaming I'd been played. I needed proof, something solid to confirm what I'd heard that night in the high-rise. so I did something reckless. I followed Victor. It was a rainy night, the kind that makes Chicago feel like it's drowning. I tailed his black SUV from his penthouse, keeping my beat-up Ford 3 cars back. He went to a warehouse in the South Loop, same district as that sketchy meeting weeks ago. I parked a block away, heart pounding, my Glock tucked under my jacket. The place was dark, just a flicker of light from a side door. I crept closer, sticking to shadows, rain soaking my clothes. Through a grimy window, I saw Victor with two guys. One was the snake tattoo thug from before, the other a wiry man in a suit, nervous, clutching a briefcase. Victor was talking fast, pointing at the case. I couldn't hear, but his body language was all control, no charm. The wiry guy opened the case, stacks of cash, maybe drugs, I couldn't tell. Then Victor said something, and Snake Tattoo laughed, a mean sound that carried through the glass. My blood ran cold. This wasn't business. This was dirty, and I'd killed to keep it going. I pulled out my phone, hands shaking, and recorded a shaky video through the window. It wasn't much, blurry, no audio, but it was Victor, the briefcase, the thug. Evidence. I ducked back as Snake Tattoo glanced toward the window, my breath caught in my throat. I thought I was made, but he turned away. I slipped back to my car, rain masking my steps, and drove off, checking my rearview every second. Back in my apartment, I watched the video, heart racing. It wasn't enough to nail Victor, but it was a start. The clarity hit me like a shock. He'd used me to kill someone who'd crossed him, maybe a rival, maybe a witness. I wasn't a bodyguard that night in the garage. I was an executioner. The shame burned, but so did the anger. I wasn't letting him walk away from this. I couldn't trust the cops. Victor had too many connections. Mark was probably in his pocket too. I thought about Lila, but she'd made her choice. I was alone, but that video was my lifeline. I copied it to a USB drive, hid it in my mattress. I didn't know what came next, but I knew I had to keep moving. Victor's world was a house of cards, and I'd just found a corner to pull. The fear was still there. But for the first time, I felt like I could fight back. I was in too deep to back out now. That blurry video was all I had, a fragile thread tying me to the truth about Victor. I couldn't go to the cops, his connections ran too deep, and I had no hard proof. But I couldn't just sit on it either. The anger, the shame of being played, it pushed me to act. I needed to get that video to someone who could use it, someone outside Victor's reach. It had to be quiet, no cops, no headlines, just me, taking a stand for what I'd done. I remembered a guy from my Marine days, Tom Kessler, now a private investigator in Milwaukee. He was clean, hated corruption, and owed me a favor from way back. If anyone could dig into Victor's world without tripping alarms, it was him. I didn't trust phones, too easy to trace, so I decided to meet him in person. It was a risk, but staying still was worse. I grabbed the USB drive, slipped it into my pocket, and headed out at dawn, checking my mirrors for tails. The drive to Milwaukee was tense, every car behind me a potential threat. I took back roads, doubled back twice, my Glock on the passenger seat. When I got to Tom's office, a cramped room above a diner, he looked older but sharp, his eyes narrowing as I told him everything: the garage, Victor's words, the warehouse deal. I handed him the USB. "This is all I've got," I said. "Can you make sense of it?" He watched the video, his jaw tight. "This is dirty, Jack. I'll look into it, but you need to lay low. Guys like Crane don't play nice." I nodded, but laying low wasn't my style anymore. I'd spent years following orders, and where'd that get me? A dead man's face in my dreams and a target on my back. I told Tom to keep it quiet, no leaks. He promised to dig into Victor's, associates, and the money trail. "Give me a week," he said. I left feeling lighter, like I'd passed a weight to someone else, but the fear was still there, coiled tight. Back in Chicago, I kept moving. I ditched my apartment for a cheap motel, paid cash, used a fake name. Every noise made me jump, a car door, a footsteps echo. I knew Victor's people were out there, maybe watching, waiting for me to slip. I checked the USB's hiding spot in my bag, paranoid I'd lose it. Giving it to Tom was my first real move against Victor, a private rebellion. It felt good, like I was taking back a piece of myself. But it wasn't enough. I'd killed for Victor, been his pawn. Handing off the video didn't erase that. I sat in that motel room, staring at my Glock, wondering if I'd have to use it again. Tom was my shot at justice, but justice felt far away. All I had was this one act, this one risk, to prove I wasn't just a killer. I wasn't sure it'd be enough, but it was all I could do. A week after I gave Tom the USB, I was still on edge, living like a ghost in that motel. The room smelled of stale smoke and mildew, but it was better than my apartment, where I felt eyes on me every night. I hadn't heard from Tom, and the silence was deafening. I kept my phone off, used cash for everything, and moved motels every few days, always looking over my shoulder. The video was out of my hands now, but it didn't feel like freedom. It felt like waiting for a bomb to go off. Victor's people were still out there. I'd see the same black sedan cruising past, slowing down just enough to make my heart race. Once, I found a cigarette butt outside my motel door, still warm, like someone had been standing there. I told myself it was nothing, but I slept with my Glock under the pillow, finger near the trigger. The fear wasn't just about getting caught, it was about what I'd become. I'd killed a man, maybe for nothing, and now I was running, no closer to answers. I thought about Lila, wondered if she'd sold me out. She hadn't texted since our last call, and I didn't dare reach out. Mark was a dead end too, probably laughing with Victor over whiskey, toasting my downfall. My notes, still hidden in my bag, felt heavier every day, like they were all I had left of who I used to be. I'd flip through them, rereading dates, faces, that warehouse deal, trying to piece together what Victor was hiding. It wasn't enough, and I knew it. One night, I saw a news clip on the motel's grainy TV, Victor at a charity gala, all smiles, shaking hands like he owned the world. No mention of me, the garage, or the dead guy. It was like I'd never existed. That hurt more than I expected. I'd given him 3 years of my life, my loyalty, my hands stained with blood, and he'd erased me. I wanted to smash the screen, but instead I just sat there, numb, wondering if Tom's digging would even matter. The worst part was the dread. Every creak, every shadow made me think Victor's guys were closing in. I didn't know if they wanted me dead or just scared, but the not knowing was worse. I'd made a move against him, given Tom the video, but it hadn't changed anything yet. The world kept turning, Victor kept smiling, and I was stuck in this limbo, a man without a life. I kept moving, kept checking my locks, my gun, my bag. The USB was with Tom, but I felt its weight anyway, like a chain around my neck. I wasn't safe, and I didn't know if I ever would be. All I had was the hope that Tom would find something, anything, to make this worth it. But hope felt thin, and the shadows felt closer every day. I'm still running, even now, and I don't know if I'll ever stop. It's been weeks since I gave Tom the video, and I'm still in this motel, a different one now, with thin walls and a flickering neon sign outside. No word from Tom, no news, just silence that feels like a noose tightening. I check my bag every morning, make sure my notes are still there, like they're proof I'm not crazy. But they don't change the truth. I killed a man for Victor Crane, and he's still out there, living his life, while I'm a shadow, dodging those I can't see. I don't trust anyone anymore. Not the guy at the motel desk who looks at me too long, not the waitress at the diner who asks where I'm from. I see Victor's face everywhere, in the crowd, in my dreams, in the reflection of a dirty window. I keep my Glock close, check the clip twice a day, but it's not enough to shake the dread. I'm not safe, and I never will be. I thought passing the video to Tom would give me some control, but it's like throwing a pebble into a storm. Nothing's changed, except now I know too much, and that makes me dangerous. I keep moving, never staying anywhere more than a few days. Cash is running low, and I can't risk a job, too easy to track. I've thought about leaving Chicago, starting over somewhere new, but what's the point? Victor's reach is long, and I've seen what happens to people who cross him. That guy in the garage, his wide eyes as he fell, I was his executioner, and now I'm the one waiting for the blade. The irony isn't lost on me. I spent years protecting others, scanning for threats, and now I'm the threat, the hunted. Sometimes I wonder if I should have stayed quiet, kept my head down like Lila. But I couldn't. I had to act, had to try to make it right, even if it's just a USB drive in someone else's hands. I don't know if Tom's still digging or if he's gone dark too. I don't know if Victor's people are a step behind me or just in my head. All I know is I'm not the man I was. The Jack Ramsey who believed in loyalty, in doing the job right, he's gone. What's left is this shell, jumping at shadows, clutching a gun that won't save me. I still see that night in the garage, the blood pooling, Victor's calm eyes. I thought I was saving him, but I was just his tool. Now I live with it, and there's no redemption, no clean ending. I'll keep running, keep checking my locks, my bag, my gun. Because even now, in the dead of night, I still check the back seat.